Welcome to HunchoJack on Diski. Ooh wee! How we always do it. Um, it's funny saying how we always do it because it's only the second time I'm doing the show. But yeah, HunchoJack on Diski. We're back. Ooh wee baby. The demigod himself sits before you. I hope that everyone is doing well, and we're just gonna get right into it. We're not gonna lube nothing. We're not gonna make anything soft. We're just gonna hit straight into the top news for this past week, sports related. um, the pressing issue of which sits on everybody's chest and is making some of us South Africans very uncomfortable. And it's Nigeria versus South Africa. As I'm recording this, the game played last night at 7 p.m. So we lost 4-2 on penalties. It was a very emotional roller coaster of a game, not gonna lie, but yeah, if we're being honest, it was a difficult one. It wasn't a game of which it was clear from the get go. Definitely, the quality of chances of which we had should have put us in a position to win. Um, Bearing on the balance of probabilities, we could have won that game. Should have won that game to some extent. Just not necessarily the quantity of chances, but the quality of chances. Like the opportunities we had to score and the opportunities they had to score. I like to say we had the slight upper hand on that one, but we didn't convert, and consequently we were finding ourselves here talking about a loss. So yeah, I think the big question is Nigeria South Africa's bogey side? Is Nigeria that side of which South Africa can never beat? Like for example, we all have in a friend group, we all have that one friend of which we know that we can whoop everybody's ass, but not their ass because they just beat us. They've always beaten up on us. Or let's say for lack of better words, they've always had the upper hand in fights, right? And they don't allow you to use weapons in the fights as kids. So you'll find yourself in a face to face situation, you're losing, you're running home to get a weapon. When you come back out, they're like, aye, aslal ganjalo, and then on your fighting stat sheet, it counts as an L. We've all had those kind of situations. We've all had those friends of which, or those people of which we know that, man, even on my best days, they can still whoop my ass. And I feel like Nigeria is that side for South Africa. Why I say that is because it's very interesting seeing the statistics. I looked at some of the numbers before recording this, and they heavily favor Nigeria. And I don't know, it's just the exposure of quality of players or the pool of quality of players that they get to pick from on a consistent basis, or it's just the overall, like, the mentality facing Nigeria is never one of which we believe in ourselves, to be honest, right? So I have a few numbers here, funny enough. So on head-to-head record, they've faced each other 15 times now, right? It's 15. Yes, they've played each other 15 times now. Nigeria has won on 8 separate occasions. South Africa, on the other hand, have only won twice against Nigeria, and one of them was in an international competition. The others, it was an Afcon win at the time. The others were losses. The others were losses, and so we've played each other 15 times. We've lost 8, only won twice, and we've drawn 5 times. This current AFCON game I counted as a loss because obviously it was a knockout game. I can't count it necessarily as a draw, right? So I counted it as a loss. So yeah, um, it's one of those situations of which statistically nothing favors us. So of all the matchups we've had against them, they have scored a total of 24 goals, while we have scored a total of 13 goals. They've won over 50% of the head-to-head challenges we've had against them, around about 54 to 55% of the head-to-heads that they've won against us. And it's like, damn, is it really one of those games, one of those teams of which we can just never get a heads up on? What is it that makes us lose to them so on such a consistent basis? It's really puzzling, right? There was a point of which we drew like 4 or 5 games on the trot against them, and you felt as though potentially the tide could be turning in our favor, but consequently, when the chips are down and it matters most, Nigeria get the win. In a similar fashion, to the 2019 AFCON in Egypt, the captain is the one of the main reasons why they get over the hump. He seems really like a mentality monster. He seems like one player who can potentially will the team emotionally and psychologically over the line. And he seems to have done that on a continuous and a consistent basis. Right. So it's like, damn. So we're basically Nigeria's little brother. Like, I can never whoop my older brother's ass. Like, I can't do that. I'm just physically incapable. And if it's not physical incapability, it's the psychological aspect of it that gets to you that I don't even believe I can do it. Is it that? Because if you look at the game, it seemed as though at some point in the game we chose to get comfortable in the fact that okay, it's 1-1, we'll take it to penalties. There were certain moments in this in extra time of which I looked at how we played, and they seemed somewhat content with the attack breaking down in the final third, being like, as long as we keep them in that half, once we get to penalties, we have the upper hand. Of which, on paper, it may seem so, but it's like penalties, and it's another one of those situations of which it's really 50-50. No one really has an upper hand. Regardless of how much you study certain penalty takers, at the end of the day, they still have to score a miss, you know? Um, so that makes it very difficult. One thing about this result of which addresses an overall issue or an outer lying issue is that there were chats before leading up to this game that the KEF chairman, the KEF president, Mr. Patrice Motsepe, is sort of having a bit of a he's causing a bit of juju for other teams whenever he attends the AFCON games. Right? He had been seen attending several AFCON games for South Africa, and they felt as though a media outlet, as a Moroccan media outlet, let me get yeah, a Moroccan media outlet said that there were a few hymns around the corners that, oh no, there's Motepe being there sort of influencing the game, right? I want to get a direct quote. And source my source from this one is goal.com. Or was it goal.co.za? Goal.com, yes. My source for this one is goal.com. And the quote says, this is what the report said. Many of those interested in the Africa Cup of Nations in Ivory Coast and sports analysts noted that the president of CAF, Patrice Motsepe, attends most of the matches of his country's South African national team, and wondered whether his attendance was intentional, as stated on Moroccan website satv.ma. Despite the difference of mobility due to the playing of his team in several stadiums, after his move to San Pedro to face Morocco, and from the city of Yamoussoukro, damn, to face Cape Verde, which made many followers consider his presence could put strong pressure on the referees at the stadium and the rulers, and therefore influence the decisions, which may bring the game out of its sports nature. So they basically saying that his presence there influences the outcome of decisions, right? I'm referee X, and since I see Patrice Motsepe sitting there, I'm like, I can't call certain fouls for the opposition team. I have to call them in favor for South Africa. I think the semi-final game just debunks that entire claim on the basis that a lot of the decisions in the game are pretty fair, right? The prime example is that decision of which at the just before the end of extra time, Nigeria gets a man running in behind Vala and Gekana are caught in no man's land, and the ball just beats the both of them. Grant is running back, trying to close back. Grant sees the opportunity. He thinks that he can get to the ball first, but then he finds himself in a situation of which Gilly he hits the man instead of the ball. At first, at first look, I thought he Gekana actually touched the ball from the angle of which the TV showed. Um, when I got another view from a front, it was like, oh, he missed the ball completely and hit the man. Right, he was just a split second off, and even the referee thought, no, man got ball. There's nothing wrong with it. But then upon VAR review, it was perfectly called a free kick outside the box, and Krankekana was sent off the pitch, obviously for a tackle, for a foul, preventing a chance at goal. All right. And we all know if it's that situation, you're gonna get a red card. So yeah, fair enough. And I think that moment on its own proves debunks the whole situation of if VAR was actually pressured to making a decision in South Africa's favor, they could have just called it. They could have just said to the official, it's unclear for us. Your decision on the ground stands, right? They could have done that, but they didn't, and they followed the right procedure, and the right outcome came to fruition. So I genuinely did. I understood it because they were sounding bitter. It sounded like a petty move. It's like one of those situations of which after you break up with someone, then they start talking bad about you. I'm pausing the intentionally so that someone realizes their actions. Yeah. So it's one of those. Um, I fairly much understand their grievances, but also see the unreasonable nature of those grievances. So overall, it's like I I don't side with you on that one, but I wouldn't be shocked if you came up with that conspiracy based on the fact that you lost convincingly. But yeah, and that's that odd. But to be honest, man, South Africa's bogey team is Nigeria. I don't see us. We really need to find a way to win against Nigeria convincingly at the biggest stages, because we seem to fail on every occasion since '92 till this day. But we'll see how it plays itself out next time. But for this one, that's it.